Picture yourself stepping off a plane into a world where your monthly budget of $600 transforms you into a king, where the Indian Ocean stretches endlessly before pristine beaches that remain virtually undiscovered by mass tourism, and where the warmth of the people matches the tropical climate. This is Mozambique, and it is about to completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about living well. On a shoestring budget, most people couldn't even point to Mozambique on a map, let alone tell you what makes this southeastern African nation one of the continent's most intriguing destinations. While everyone's chasing overpriced experiences in South Africa or Kenya, savvy travelers and expats have quietly been making their way to this Portuguese-speaking paradise, where a beer costs less than $1, fresh prawns are cheaper than a fast food meal back home, and the women possess a natural beauty that photographers spend fortunes trying to capture elsewhere. But here is what makes Mozambique truly special. It is not just another cheap destination, where you sacrifice quality for affordability. This is a country where you can live like royalty, on what most people spend on their monthly coffee habit, where every sunset feels like a personal show put on by nature, and where the pace of life moves to a rhythm that actually makes sense. The Portuguese left behind more than just language and architecture. They left a culture that values leisure, good food, and human connection over the relentless pursuit of productivity. The statistics tell one story. Mozambique remains one of the world's least developed countries. But statistics never capture the full picture. They don't tell you about the entrepreneurs selling the most incredible grilled prawns from a beach cart for $2, or the local woman who will invite you into her home for dinner simply because you smiled and said bom dia in Portuguese. They don't capture the magic of floating through turquoise waters in a traditional dhow boat, watching fish eagles soar overhead while the wooden hull cuts through water, so clear you can see tropical fish swimming 20 feet below. What makes this even more remarkable is how accessible it's all become. While other African destinations require complex visa processes and expensive permits, Mozambique rolled out the red carpet in recent years. American citizens can now enter visa-free for tourism and business, staying up to 90 days without any advanced paperwork. It's as if the country finally decided to let the world in on its secret. The Indian Ocean defines everything here. This isn't a landlocked nation where you have to travel hours to reach water. Mozambique boasts over 2,500 kilometers of coastline, meaning you are never far from beaches. That would be the crown jewel of any other country's tourism industry. From the southern border with South Africa all the way north to Tanzania, the coast varies from dramatic cliffs to endless white sand beaches, from mangrove forests to coral reefs teeming with marine life. That makes experienced divers weep with joy. The geography reads like a wish list for anyone seeking diversity in their surroundings. You've got the bustling capital of Maputo in the south, with its distinctive Portuguese colonial architecture and vibrant cultural scene. Moving north, the landscape transforms through tropical forest savanna and eventually reaches the ancient port city of Ilha de Mozambique, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That feels frozen in time, from the days when Arab traders and Portuguese explorers first encountered each other on these shores. Portuguese colonization lasted 5 centuries, from 1498 until independence in 1975, leaving an indelible mark that sets Mozambique apart from its English-speaking neighbors. Walk through any city, and you'll hear Portuguese mixed with local languages like Makua, creating a linguistic blend. That sounds like music. The architecture tells stories of trade routes that connected Africa to India and beyond, with buildings featuring intricate stonework and wooden balconies that have weathered centuries of tropical storms. The Civil War that raged from 1977 to 1990 devastated much of the infrastructure. But what emerged from that darkness is a population with an incredible resilience and optimism that visitors notice immediately. Mozambicans have a saying, "Devagar se vai longe," which roughly translates to "slowly one goes far." This philosophy permeates daily life, creating an atmosphere where stress seems almost foreign and rushing is viewed with suspicion. Today's Mozambique is experiencing a renaissance. International investment is pouring in, particularly for natural gas exploration off the northern coast. but the benefits haven't yet reached the point where they've inflated prices for everyday living. This creates a unique window of opportunity for foreigners seeking an authentic African experience, without the commercial tourism infrastructure that often sanitizes the local culture. The cultural fabric here weaves together African traditions with Portuguese influence and Arab heritage from centuries of Indian Ocean trade. Music pulses through daily life from the traditional timbila orchestras of the Chopi people, now recognized by UNESCO as a masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage, to the modern sounds of Marabenta that evolved from Portuguese folk music mixed with local rhythms. The result is a soundtrack to daily life that makes even mundane activities, like shopping for vegetables, feel celebratory. Speaking of shopping, the markets are sensory explosions that assault you with colors, sounds, and aromas that Western supermarkets could never replicate. Maputo's central market sprawls across multiple blocks, with vendors selling everything from live chickens and enormous prawns still twitching from the morning catch to capulana fabrics and patterns so intricate they look like abstract art. The Portuguese influence shows up in the bread, crusty rolls, called pauzinho, that are perfect for breakfast, while African traditions dominate the dinner table, with dishes like matapa, a stew made from cassava leaves that's been simmered for hours, until it reaches the perfect consistency. The rhythm of daily life moves to a different beat than what most foreigners are accustomed to. Mornings start early, around 5:30, when the air is still cool and the streets begin filling with people walking to work. By 10 in the morning, the heat becomes serious business, and anyone with sense retreats indoors or finds shade. The afternoon siesta isn't just a luxury, it's a survival strategy. Then, as the sun begins its descent around 4, the streets come alive again with the energy that carries through until well past midnight. Transportation becomes an adventure in itself. The Chapa system, shared minibus taxis that connect every corner of the country, operates on African time and African logic, but it works. For less than 50 cents, you can travel across an entire city, squeezed between construction workers heading home and market vendors with baskets of tomatoes balanced on their laps. The Chapas don't leave until they're completely full, which means you might wait 20 minutes or 2 hours, but you'll never sit alone with your thoughts because Mozambicans view silence as wasted opportunity. Why for conversation? In Maputo, tuk-tuks called sapilas zip through traffic with a fearlessness that initially terrifies foreign passengers but eventually becomes addictive. These three-wheeled vehicles can carry an impossible amount of cargo and passengers, defying physics while providing transportation for about $1 per ride. For longer distances or coastal transportation, the traditional dhow boats still operate much as they have for centuries, with wooden hulls and triangular sails that catch the Indian Ocean trade winds. The food scene deserves its own documentary. Mozambican cuisine reflects the country's position as a crossroads between Africa, Arabia, and Europe. Seafood dominates, which makes sense when you consider that most of the population lives within a few hours of the ocean. Prawns here are enormous, sweet, and so affordable that eating them every day doesn't strain the budget. They're typically prepared peri-peri style, marinated in a sauce made from African bird's eye chili peppers, garlic, lemon juice, and olive oil that creates a heat level that builds slowly but memorably. Peri-peri chicken, now famous worldwide thanks to restaurant chains, originated in Mozambique and tastes nothing like the commercialized versions served elsewhere. Here, the chickens roam freely, developing actual flavor, and the peri-peri sauce is made fresh with chilies that have been growing in African soil for generations. Served with coconut rice and a cold Laurentina or Manica beer, it becomes a meal that costs less than $5, but satisfies more completely than most restaurant meals costing 10 times as much. The cashew culture adds another dimension to the food experience. Mozambique is one of the world's largest cashew producers, and locals have developed dozens of ways to use the fruit, including fermenting it into a potent wine called sura that sneaks up on unsuspecting foreigners. The cashew apple, which grows above the familiar nut, has a sweet, astringent flavor that takes some getting used to, but becomes addictive once your palate adjusts. Street food vendors operate throughout cities and towns, serving everything from fresh corn grilled over charcoal to bhagia fried dough balls that are perfect for breakfast. With strong Portuguese-style coffee, the coffee culture here is serious business, inherited from Portuguese colonial times but adapted to local tastes and budgets. A proper coffee costs about 25 cents, served in small cups with enough sugar to fuel a marathon. Portuguese influence shows most clearly in the bread culture. Bakeries operate on European schedules, producing fresh bread twice daily that would make Parisians jealous. The contrast between African ingredients and Portuguese techniques creates unique flavors. Coconut bread, cassava rolls, and sweet pastries filled with tropical fruits that don't exist in European cookbook. Now, let's address something that draws many male visitors to Mozambique. The women are genuinely stunning, but not in the artificial, Instagram-filtered way that's become common elsewhere. Mozambican beauty standards celebrate natural curves and authentic confidence. The genetic mix of African, Arab, and Portuguese heritage creates features that are striking without being uniform. More importantly, the culture hasn't been contaminated by Western body image neuroses or the materialism that makes dating in developed countries feel like a business transaction. Mozambican women maintain traditional values while being surprisingly independent and educated. Many speak multiple languages fluently and run their own businesses. From market stalls to beauty salons to restaurants, the Portuguese influence created a culture where women are valued for intelligence and personality, not just appearance. Though the appearance is certainly noteworthy, dating culture here moves at a refreshingly human pace. There's no Tinder culture of endless swiping and disposable connections. Relationships develop organically through social circles, family introductions, or chance meetings at markets, churches, or community events. The concept of courtship still exists, where men are expected to demonstrate genuine interest and respect rather than just showing up with a clever pickup line. In a smartphone full of dating apps, social life revolves around community gatherings, family celebrations, and church events rather than expensive nightclub scenes. This creates opportunities for authentic connections based on shared experiences rather than alcohol-fueled encounters that evaporate with the morning hangover. When nightlife does happen, it's often centered around live music venues where local bands play marbenta, semba, or contemporary African music that makes dancing feel natural rather than performative. The beauty standards here favor health over skeletal thinness, curvy. Women are considered more attractive, which reflects both African aesthetic preferences and practical considerations in a climate where body fat provides insurance against lean times. This creates a much more relaxed atmosphere around food and body image than exists in appearance-obsessed Western cultures. Fashion sense combines practical considerations with cultural pride. The capulana, a colorful wrap fabric worn by women throughout Mozambique, serves multiple functions as clothing, baby carrier, head covering, and fashion statement. Women have developed incredible skill at tying these fabrics in ways that are both functional and beautiful, creating styles that change throughout the day depending on activities and social situations. The festival calendar provides regular opportunities to experience cultural traditions that have survived centuries of change. The Mapiko Festival celebrates traditional mass dancing of the Makan people, where performers wear intricate wooden masks and elaborate costumes while executing dances that tell stories about ancestors, spirits, and community values. UNESCO recently recognized Mapiko as an intangible cultural heritage, validating what locals have always known about its cultural significance. Timbila festivals showcase the xylophone orchestras that create complex polyrhythmic music, using instruments carved from indigenous hardwoods. These performances can last for hours, with different sections of the orchestra taking turns leading the melody while others provide rhythmic support that is both hypnotically repetitive and surprisingly sophisticated. Independence Day celebrations on June 25th transform cities and towns into massive street parties, featuring traditional music, dancing, and food that continues late into the night. And like nationalistic celebrations in some countries, Mozambique's independence festivities feel genuinely joyful rather than militaristic. celebrating freedom and cultural identity rather than military might. Religious festivals blend Christian and traditional African elements in ways that create unique celebrations. Christmas here involves traditional Portuguese elements like midnight mass and nativity scenes, but also includes African music, traditional foods, and community gatherings that extend the celebration for days rather than just a single holiday. Marriage ceremonies combine traditional African customs with Portuguese Catholic influences and Islamic elements inherited from Arab traders. These celebrations can last for days, involving elaborate gift exchanges, traditional clothing, ceremonial foods, and music that brings entire communities together. Living on $600 monthly in Mozambique isn't just possible. It is comfortable if you adapt to local lifestyles and preferences. Rent becomes the largest expense, but even that varies dramatically depending on location and expectations. In Maputo, a decent one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood costs between $150 and $250 monthly, including basic utilities. Outside major cities, housing costs drop significantly. In coastal towns like Tofo or Vilanculos, you can rent a house with ocean views for less than $100 monthly, though you'll sacrifice some urban conveniences like reliable internet and 24-hour electricity. The trade-off often feels worthwhile when your morning coffee comes with views of fishermen launching dhows into surf that glows golden in the sunrise light. Food costs remain incredibly low if you shop like locals and eat local foods. Fresh fish costs about $2 per kilogram, prawns cost $3, and locally grown vegetables are almost free. By Western standards, a typical daily food budget of $5 provides 3 full meals, including protein, vegetables, fruit, and beverages. Local transportation is almost negligible as an expense. Chopper rides cost between 25 and 50 cents. Tuk-tuk rides within cities cost about $1, and even intercity bus transportation costs less than $10 for journeys that would cost hundreds in developed countries. Internet and phone service have improved dramatically in recent years. A monthly data plan providing adequate internet for basic needs costs about $15, and voice calls are incredibly cheap. International calling through WhatsApp or Skype makes staying connected with family and business contacts back home practically free. Healthcare requires careful consideration, but isn't necessarily expensive. Basic medical services cost very little, but serious medical issues might require travel to South Africa or evacuation insurance. Malaria prevention is essential and adds about $10 monthly to the budget for anti-malarial medication, mosquito nets, and repellent. Entertainment and social life don't require large expenditures. Beach access is free. Hiking doesn't cost anything, and socializing typically revolves around shared meals or community events rather than expensive entertainment venues. A monthly entertainment budget of $50 provides plenty of opportunities for dining out, attending concerts, or participating in local festivities. The biggest adjustment for many foreigners involves slowing down to match local rhythms and accepting that efficiency isn't always the highest priority. Banking transactions might take longer than expected. Government services operate on relaxed schedules, and even simple purchases can become social events as vendors inquire about your health, family, and plans for the day. Transportation adventures begin the moment you step into a chopper. These minibuses serve as the circulatory system of Mozambican society, connecting urban neighborhoods to rural villages and everything in between. The chopper experience is democratic in the most literal sense. Everyone from government ministers to market vendors uses the same system, creating a mobile melting pot where social hierarchies temporarily dissolve. Chopper stations buzz with controlled chaos. Drivers and conductors compete for passengers by shouting destinations, departure times, and passenger capacity with the enthusiasm of carnival barkers. The skill lies in decoding this information while managing luggage, negotiating prices for excess baggage, and securing seats that won't require sitting on someone's lap for the next 3 hours. The vehicles themselves represent automotive archaeology. Most choppers started life as Japanese minibuses decades ago, but have been modified, repaired, and adapted in ways that would make their original designers weep. Extra seats are welded in wherever space permits. Luggage racks extend far beyond the original roofline, and sound systems are installed with enough power to wake neighboring countries. Departure schedules operate on African time, which means the chopper leaves when it's full rather than at any predetermined moment. This creates opportunities for extended people watching and impromptu conversations with fellow passengers. Mozambicans are naturally curious about foreigners and will politely inquire about your origins, destination, and opinion of their country while sharing mangoes, cashews, or other snacks that materialize from various bags and baskets. Once moving, choppas become mobile social clubs. Passengers discuss politics, family news, business opportunities, and local gossip with a freedom that transforms mundane transportation into community bonding experiences. Children sleep peacefully across multiple laps while mothers balance babies and market purchases with practiced ease. Vendors board at major stops to sell everything from cold drinks to grilled corn, conducting business through windows while the vehicle continues moving. Tuk-tuks provide urban transportation with more speed and flexibility than choppas, but less social interaction. These three-wheeled vehicles navigate traffic with a fearlessness that initially terrifies foreign passengers but eventually becomes exhilarating. Drivers possess an intimate knowledge of shortcuts, alternative routes, and traffic patterns that allows them to deliver passengers faster than four-wheeled vehicles following conventional routes. The Tsopila culture in Maputo has developed its own social dynamics. Drivers often specialize in particular neighborhoods or customer types, building regular clientele who appreciate their knowledge of local conditions. Some drivers speak multiple languages and serve as informal tour guides, sharing information about local attractions, restaurants, and cultural events while weaving through traffic. For coastal transportation, traditional dhow boats continue operating much as they have for centuries. These wooden vessels use wind power and human skill rather than engines, creating a transportation experience that connects passengers to maritime traditions spanning generations. The captains, often hereditary sailors whose families have worked these waters for centuries, read weather patterns, wind shifts, and tidal changes with an accuracy that puts modern meteorology to shame. Dhow journeys operate on natural schedules determined by wind and tide rather than human convenience. This means departures might be delayed for hours if conditions aren't favorable, but the eventual journey becomes a meditation on the relationship between human activity and natural forces. Passengers often include local fishermen, market vendors transporting goods between coastal communities, and tourists seeking authentic experiences away from motorized transportation. The boats themselves are works of art disguised as functional vehicles, built using traditional techniques passed down through generations. Each dhow reflects the personality and skill of its builder. The wood is carefully selected from forests where specific tree species provide the strength and flexibility needed for ocean travel. The sails, often patched and repatched over years of use, catch wind with an efficiency that modern yacht designers struggle to match. Road travel reveals infrastructure challenges and natural beauty in equal measure. The N1 highway connecting south to north represents one of Africa's major transportation arteries, but sections remain unpaved or poorly maintained, creating journeys that test vehicle suspension and passenger patience. However, these same challenging roads pass through landscapes of stunning beauty: baobab forests, mountain ranges, coastal plains, and savanna that stretches to horizons unmarked by human development. Rainy season transforms transportation completely. Roads become rivers, bridges wash away, and vehicle travel requires four-wheel drive capability and local knowledge about alternative routes. This seasonal isolation actually enhances the sense of adventure for visitors who time their travels to experience Mozambique during its most dramatic weather patterns. The country's natural attractions provide endless opportunities for adventure without requiring expensive tour operators or specialized equipment. Gorongosa National Park represents one of Africa's greatest conservation success stories, having recovered from Civil War devastation to become home to healthy populations of lions, elephants, African wild dogs, and over 500 bird species. The park's entrance fees remain reasonable. Camping facilities are basic but functional, and game viewing doesn't require expensive safari vehicles since many animals can be observed from affordable guided walks. The restoration of Gorongosa demonstrates Mozambican resilience and international cooperation at its finest. During the Civil War, wildlife populations were decimated as both sides hunted animals for food and ivory to fund military operations. By 1992, elephant populations had dropped from over 2,000 to fewer than 100, and most other large mammals faced similar declines. The Gorongosa Restoration Project, launched in partnership with American philanthropist Greg Carr, has transformed the park into a model for community-based conservation. Local people receive employment as park guides, rangers, and researchers, while traditional hunting communities participate in wildlife monitoring and protection programs. The result is a park where animal populations are recovering rapidly, while surrounding communities benefit economically from conservation rather than exploitation. Mozambique Island, the UNESCO World Heritage Site off the northern coast, provides a different type of natural and cultural attraction. This small coral island served as the capital of Portuguese East Africa for centuries, accumulating architectural treasures that reflect the meeting of African, Arab, and European cultures. The entire island can be walked in a few hours, but each building tells stories about maritime trade, cultural exchange, and the rise and fall of colonial empires. The island's stone town contains palaces, churches, and fortifications built from coral limestone quarried locally and designed by architects who understood both European defensive needs and tropical climate requirements. The Macuti town, where indigenous populations lived during colonial times, showcases traditional architecture adapted to coastal conditions using local materials and building techniques refined over centuries. Bezaruto Archipelago off the central coast consists of 6 islands surrounded by marine national park waters that protect some of the Indian Ocean as most pristine coral reefs. The islands combine stunning beaches with world-class diving and fishing opportunities that remain accessible to budget-conscious visitors willing to stay in basic accommodations and arrange transportation through local operators rather than expensive resort packages. Tofo Beach has become legendary among backpackers and marine enthusiasts for its whale shark population and relaxed atmosphere that attracts long-term visitors seeking to escape conventional tourism environments. The town consists mainly of guest houses, beachfront bars, and dive shops catering to independent travelers rather than packaged tour groups. Accommodation costs between $10 and $30 nightly, meals cost less than $5, and diving with whale sharks, an experience that costs hundreds of dollars in other destinations, can be arranged for under $50. The whale sharks that congregate off Tofo Beach are part of a larger marine ecosystem that includes manta rays, dolphins, humpback whales, and sea turtles. The best viewing occurs between October and March, when plankton blooms attract the whale sharks close to shore, where they can be observed by snorkelers and divers without expensive boat trips to deeper waters. Safety considerations require honest assessment without excessive alarm. Petty crime exists, particularly in urban areas and tourist zones, but violent crime targeting foreigners remains relatively rare. The key involves adopting common sense precautions similar to those used in any developing country, avoiding displays of wealth, staying aware of surroundings, and using reliable transportation after dark. Maputo requires more caution than smaller cities or coastal towns. Pickpocketing occurs in crowded markets and transport stations, and occasional muggings happen in isolated areas or late at night. However, most expats and long-term visitors develop street-smart habits quickly and find that respectful behavior and basic Portuguese language skills provide significant protection. Health considerations center primarily around malaria prevention and basic hygiene practices. Malaria exists throughout Mozambique, with risk levels varying by season and location. The coastal areas and cities have lower transmission rates than rural inland regions, but anti-malarial medication is recommended for all visitors. Mosquito nets, repellent, and protective clothing provide additional protection while reducing reliance on medication. Water quality varies significantly between urban and rural areas. Maputo's municipal water is generally safe for locals, but may cause stomach upset for foreign visitors. Bottled water is cheap and widely available, making it the safest option for drinking and food preparation. Rural areas often depend on wells or surface water that requires boiling or purification tablets for safe consumption. Healthcare facilities in major cities provide adequate services for minor medical issues, but serious conditions might require evacuation to South Africa where advanced medical care is available. Travel insurance, including medical evacuation coverage, is essential, particularly for visitors planning extended stays or adventure activities in remote areas. Education opportunities exist for expat families, though options vary by location. Maputo has several international schools offering instruction in English or Portuguese, while smaller cities typically have local schools that may require Portuguese fluency. Homeschooling becomes an option for families seeking flexible education while traveling or living in areas without suitable schools. The visa situation has simplified significantly for many nationalities. United States citizens can enter Mozambique for tourism or business purposes without advance visas, staying up to 90 days per visit. This visa-free status makes Mozambique one of the most accessible African destinations for American travelers, eliminating the paperwork and processing delays common in neighboring countries. Longer-term residence requires different visa categories depending on the purpose of stay. Business visas allow extended stays for commercial activities, while temporary residence permits can be obtained for employment or investment purposes. The process involves dealing with Mozambican bureaucracy, which operates at a relaxed pace and requires patience rather than urgency. Banking and money transfer present both opportunities and challenges. ATMs exist in major cities and accept international cards, though daily withdrawal limits may require multiple transactions. For larger amounts, bank transfers through international services work but involve fees and processing delays that make carrying cash more practical for many transactions. Currency exchange operates through banks, hotels, and informal money changers who offer better rates but require more caution about counterfeit bills or short-changing. The medical has remained relatively stable against major currencies, though inflation affects local prices gradually over time. Internet connectivity has improved dramatically with fiber optic cables and cellular tower expansion reaching most populated areas. Urban internet speeds support video calls and streaming, while rural areas may have slower connections that require patience for large file transfers or video content. Mobile data is affordable and often more reliable than fixed connections. The cellular phone system covers most of the country with multiple carriers competing on price and coverage. SIM cards are cheap and easy to obtain, making local phone service accessible for short-term visitors and long-term residents. International calling through internet services costs much less than traditional phone calls. Portuguese language skills dramatically improve the living experience, though English is increasingly spoken in tourist areas and among educated professionals. Basic Portuguese phrases for greetings, directions, and shopping make daily interactions much smoother and demonstrate respect for local culture that Mozambicans appreciate. Local languages like Makuwa-Sena and Shona are spoken in different regions, and learning basic phrases in the dominant local language creates connections with people who appreciate foreigners making the effort to communicate in their native tongue, rather than assuming Portuguese or English comprehension. Cultural etiquette involves understanding that personal relationships take priority over punctuality or efficiency. Business meetings might start late if family obligations or social courtesies require attention first. This reflects cultural values that prioritize human connections over schedules, creating a more relaxed but sometimes unpredictable environment for visitors. Accustomed to strict time management, religious practices play important roles in daily life, with Catholic Christianity, Islam, and traditional African beliefs coexisting peacefully in most areas. Visitors who show respect for religious customs and participate appropriately in community celebrations find doors opening that remain closed to those who display indifference or hostility toward local spiritual practices. The climate requires adjustment for visitors from temperate regions. The tropical climate means high temperatures and humidity year-round, with distinct wet and dry seasons that affect travel, outdoor activities, and daily routines. The dry season from May through October provides the most comfortable weather for visitors, while the rainy season from November through April brings dramatic storms, lush vegetation, and challenging travel conditions. Cyclone season affects coastal areas periodically, typically between December and April. While destructive cyclones are relatively rare, visitors during this period should monitor weather forecasts and understand evacuation procedures for coastal accommodations. The cyclone risk is offset by spectacular storm washing opportunities and the dramatic beauty of tropical weather systems viewed from safe locations. Why does Mozambique remain Africa's best kept secret when it offers so much for so little? Part of the answer lies in its troubled post-independence history that kept tourists away for decades while neighboring countries developed tourism industries. The Civil War that ended in 1992 destroyed infrastructure and created a reputation for instability that persisted long after peace was established and democracy took root. Another factor is linguistic isolation. While English-speaking tourists flock to Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa, Mozambique's Portuguese heritage creates a language barrier that deters visitors uncomfortable with attempting basic Portuguese phrases. This same barrier has preserved authentic culture that hasn't been sanitized for mass tourism consumption. The lack of extensive tourism infrastructure also contributes to the secret status. Mozambique doesn't have luxury safari lodges, international hotel chains, or package tour operators promoting expensive travel packages. Instead, it offers authentic experiences that require more independence and cultural adaptation from visitors willing to step outside their comfort zones. For adventurous travelers and expats seeking authentic African experiences without premium prices, Mozambique provides opportunities that are disappearing elsewhere on the continent. The combination of Portuguese colonial architecture, African cultural traditions, stunning natural beauty, and incredibly affordable living costs creates a lifestyle that feels both exotic and sustainable. The women, the beaches, the food, the music, and the affordability all contribute to Mozambique's appeal. But the real magic lies in the human connections that develop naturally in a culture that values relationships over transactions. Whether you're seeking a romantic adventure, a cultural experience, or simply a place where your money stretches further than you thought possible, Mozambique delivers experiences that will fundamentally change how you think about travel lifestyle and what constitutes the good life. As international investment increases and infrastructure improves, the window for experiencing Mozambique at current prices won't remain open indefinitely. The smart money recognizes that this combination of affordability, beauty, and authentic culture represents a temporary opportunity that deserves serious consideration. From anyone seeking alternatives to expensive, overcrowded, commercialized travel destinations, $600 monthly buys more than just survival. In Mozambique, it purchases a lifestyle that most people pay thousands to experience temporarily. During vacation, the question isn't whether Mozambique offers good value, but whether you're ready to embrace a pace of life where human connections matter more than Wi-Fi speed, where natural beauty isn't packaged for consumption, and where adventure means adapting to local customs rather than expecting the world to accommodate your preferences. If you remain intrigued by the possibility of living well for less while experiencing one of Africa's most authentic destinations, Mozambique awaits with open arms, stunning beaches, incredible food, beautiful people, and prices that make sustainable long-term living not just possible, but comfortable. The only question remaining is when you'll book your ticket to discover Africa as wild coast for yourself.